Today I wanted to talk about what in my opinion is the greatest F1 car ever made, and by extension, the greatest car ever made. And obviously there's lots and lots of opinions on that, and rightfully so. It's very hard to pick just one, right? But in my mind, I'm thinking Formula One, peak automotive engineering, right? So it's got to be one of those. And what else could it be other than the F2004, right? It's a Ferrari, which when you think about race cars, that's the number one company and team that comes to mind. It's from, in my mind, the greatest era in F1, right? The old V10s. They're loud, they're powerful, they're lightweight, and they're pretty reliable, depending on who made them. And Ferrari's V10 was pretty reliable, right? So it's the complete package. What more could you want? And on top of that, it was driven by arguably the greatest driver ever. If not the greatest, definitely one of the greatest. And that's, of course, Michael Schumacher. So a bit of a history lesson if you're not familiar with the F2004. It's from a time when Michael and Ferrari were absolutely crushing the competition. Michael had won 6 championships at that point, and he would end up winning his 7th with the F2004. Funny enough, it wasn't the most dominant car just by number of race wins. That was the F2002. But we're talking cars. So the car itself, I think the F2004 takes the cake. So anyway, back to the history lesson. Ferrari developed this brand new car for 2004. They went out, they started testing it around Fiorano. They had their instruments and etc., what have you. And the engineers, they went back, they looked at the data that they got, and they were a little confused. The numbers they were getting were really good. So good, in fact, they thought their instruments were malfunctioning. And that's where the legend begins. So for the rest of the season, Michael and Rubens took most of the wins, most of the podiums. And there are a lot of reasons why this combination of Michael and Ferrari worked so well. One of them just having to do with how well Michael communicated with everyone. It's pretty well known that he would really, really care deeply about his team, asking them all sorts of questions about their family, checking in on them for whatever, just being very, very tight with them. And in turn, that built up a lot of loyalty between the team and him, which then contributed to them creating such a good car. Plus, Ferrari had their stuff together, so So that's how they ended up creating this incredible V10 legendary go-kart of a car. And of course, thanks to how well they communicated, they did really well during the season, which is where it counted the most. And another point about these 2004 cars, the 2004 and 2005 seasons in my mind are the best ever. Because you had the peak of the V10s, so you had the best cars. They're lightweight, they're really nimble, very powerful, and they're go-karts, right? They didn't have any active aero or anything like that. So it came down purely to how good the car was mechanically and how good the driver was. Yeah, there were a few electronic aids and stuff, but that's really just to help the driver, not so much be the focal point, kind of like how DRS is nowadays. So to me, the 04 and 05 races are still just incredible. You could go back and re-watch some of them, and you'll have a blast. And I've actually done that. I've gone back and just watched some 04 and 05 races, and they end up often being more entertaining than some of the ones we've seen in other years. Of course, Formula One's Formula One, so every race is enjoyable. As I see it, the only real issue with these old cars was the fact that they were forced to be on groove tires. Because the FIA thought, generate a ton of G-force. So it would be a little unsafe to put them on straight slicks. So all of these cars were on groove tires, which effectively reduced the amount of surface area that was in contact with the road, thereby reducing the amount of G-force that they could generate. But even with that, they still hold a few lap records. Now there's multiple types of lap records, right? You've got your all-time qualifying records, race lap records, and then other records that can come up during practice or testing or whatever. So the F2004 still holds a lap record at Shanghai, for example. So just goes to show, that car was very, very dominant. And I bug my one friend all the time. If you really want to make F1 the greatest it's ever been, just make it a spec series. Bring 20 F2004s on the grid, slap a halo on them, and let the drivers have at it. That's all you need. So that's all I really had for this one. There's thousands of reasons why the F2004 is the greatest car ever. So maybe call this part 1. And maybe there will be a part 2 down the line. But I freaking love that car. It's spectacular. Beyond the performance and the prestige behind it, it's when you listen to it, there's just nothing else like it. It's the best sound in the world. The sound of a Ferrari V10. I hope you enjoyed. Like I said at the beginning, there's a lot of opinions of what the greatest car ever is. So let me know what you think is the greatest car ever. And maybe I'll make a video about it. It may not be the greatest in my mind, but it may end up being a car I really love. But that's it for this one. Ciao for now.